Good morning, Canadian Yarn Horde. My name is Alyssa, and today we're just going to do a quick, simple knitted coffee cozy with double pointed needles. As you can see, Willow's joined us behind, cleaning himself like normal. I'm going to move you over to the overhead cam, and we'll get started. So, we're going to be making this very simple coffee cup cozy. We're going to be using number size 4 DPNs. The yarn I'm using is Bernat Bundle Up by Yarnspirations. It is a number 4. The recommended needle and hook are 5mm needle and 5.5mm hook. It is 100% polyester. I'm going to use, like I said, the 4mm. We're going to start right now. Let me grab 4. I do not use 5 needles when I use DPNs. I always use 4. I find it's easier to have 3 needles. This is where it gets a little confusing and complicated. I am going to just plug in my phone quickly. Just so that. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast 6 stitches on a needle. So you're going to make your slip stitch, insert your hook, and you're going to then put on 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Because as I always say, the 6 stitches, the last stitch is always. So now what you're going to do is you're going to knit 2, 1, 2, and there's your 2 on this needle. You're going to knit 2 onto this needle. Now it is going to get hard, confusing. This is where it starts to get a little more confusing once you get all the needles on. So now you're going to do the 3rd needle. And yes, practice is why I know what I'm doing here. So now what you're going to do is you're going to grab, I like to try and center them so that way you don't have any accidental fall offs. Now, once you get this first couple of rows done, it will even and balance out. But you're going to knit 1, increase. So you're going to increase in every stitch here. So there's your first stitch increase. So that's 2 stitches now. 3 and 4. So there's your second row. And you're going to continue. Now, I really do recommend when you're done the 3rd needle, so the 3rd increase, and I do usually recommend waiting until you have your first increase done to put a stitch marker in. So there's your 2nd. Now, you want to make sure you do not twist these needles. They can get twisted. You do not want to do that. I'm not sure what it'd look like if we did. Maybe I'll practice on something one day and see what pattern comes out by twisting. But we're just going to increase. Now, after this increase, I do recommend, so there's your, so you went from 6 to 12 stitches, 4 on each needle. Grab your stitch marker and make sure you put it in there. There is a specific reason. Knitting is not like crochet. Knitting, you do not know where you started. So, unless you leave the tail or you put a stitch marker in. Now, I'm going to say you're going to continue increasing. And this is another way of increasing. If you just want to do that, you can always knit in the back of the stitch. So that's one way of increasing. You're going to knit to the last stitch. 1, 2, and then you're going to increase in the first and the last stitch of each needle. Now, I can continue to make this a stitch like that, or you don't have to actually wrap it around. It works either way. So now, as you see, it's starting to even out and balance out. Working with DPNs, the beginning is always the hardest. Once you get the pattern relatively going, they balance easily. Now you're going to continue increasing until you have enough that your coffee cup can sit in the center of your work. So I'm not sure how many increases it's going to take, because you want your coffee cup will literally sit right there. You'll put your cup in the center of it, and you want your cup to fit. So I will show you when I get there. You're going to continue increasing on the first stitch and the last stitch on each needle. You just continually increase until you think you can get your coffee cup in there. This is the other increase. So you don't knit it, you just slide it off. I'm going to go back and knit it because I want consistency. So I'm going to keep going until I will have enough, and I will count out and tell you how many stitches I have on the needles at that time. So I will come back when I have the desired amount of stitches and I can fit my coffee cup in here. Okay, so I have 20 stitches on each needle, and that should be pretty good. So what you're going to do now is you're going to turn it and you're going to purl. So you're going to purl. Normally well, I guess you can still stay. We're not going to increase. We're going to do at least a row or two. Stick with that, and then I will turn. So we're going to do a row or two right now of just no increases. Don't mind my needles. They are a little noisy, but as you can see, it's balanced itself out. I don't remember. I've done a few of these today, so I don't remember if I've actually said about liking, subscribing, all of that. So if I have, I apologize if I haven't. If you are a new viewer, thank you very much for coming. If you are a returning viewer, thank you very much for coming back. I appreciate it. I appreciate the new viewers too. What I basically like to do here, if you're new, is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I do a daily update to just keep you updated as to what I'm working on. So that way you can have a realistic idea of how some of these projects can take. Some of them are an hour, some of them are a week, some of them are a month. So this way you get a more realistic idea of how long a project can take, because I think with TikToks, people think that it can take an hour, and some of these things can take an hour, but some of these things can also take a month. So I think it's a great idea to show it. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do project videos. I release a project video. I just released my last project video today on the new, without the new intro and my intro, and then the thanks for watching. I don't know when this will be coming out. This could come out around Christmas for all I know. I do like to keep a lot of videos back in and ready to go, just in case I have troubles with my internet or whatever. So I do try to do that. That's why I do get a lot backed up. I have about 30 backed up. So that's one row, and we're going to do a second row. And we'll then measure with the cup and see how high it goes up, because with my cup, you can see I do have a bit of a lip there that I like to get up. So you want to do a couple of rows. If you don't have that, because I do have a cup that doesn't have that, you can easily just start purling. If you'd have started purling and going back and forth and not connecting the rows, it would have been just fine. I'm only doing this because my coffee cup has that spot. So what I'm going to do is finish this row off, and then I will measure it again. And then, as I said, you're either going to do one more row, which may be possible. You may have to do 3 rows, not just 2. And then you're going to not connect the double pointed needles. So you're just going to do it as if you were on a straight needle, but you do need to leave them on the double pointed needles because you're going in a circle. So you will use them just like you would a straight needle. If you were doing this for a cup, you wouldn't have to. You just keep going up. Everything would be fine. We're just going to be doing a basic simple stocking stitch. I figured the first couple of DPN projects shouldn't be too complicated. They're complicated enough with the amount of needles you have. So I'm just going to do one more row, and then I will measure, and then I will show you how to just use them like straight needles, basically. And I'm also going to darn in that end as soon as I'm done this row because I don't need it anymore. If I didn't have the stitch marker, I would still need it. However, it isn't the best way to tell which row you're working on. It's just a general guideline that you work with if you're in a hurry and you don't have a stitch marker. I don't recommend using the tail for that. I do recommend a stitch marker, especially when knitting with DPNs. So now we're going to put the cut in, and we want it like that. And I'm at the perfect spot now for me. So now I'm going to purl. I get my needles in place, and we're just going to purl, and then I guess I should darn that in first. There we go. Now, you won't be able to tighten this up like you do with crochet. Crochet, you are able to just tighten it up. You can go in this way and you just tighten it up by going around with your tail if you don't like the hole at the bottom. It is, like I said, it's not like crochet where you're actually working on the thread. This one, you work it in and then you have to darn it up at the end. So just gonna try and grab that there. Here, and that should be good. So there's the darning, and then, like I said, then we're going to do purl. So you do it just like you would regular straight needles. So you're just going to purl now, and you're going to purl all the way to the end, and you're just going to turn and then knit the next row. You're going to do that. I'm going to measure this because I have this one here. You're going to continue that for, that's where my end is, for 4 inches. So I'm going to come back. As I said, you just knit. When I'm done this row, I'll show you how you just turn. You don't actually connect them. You don't want to connect them. And then you're just going to do 4 straight inches of stocking stitch, and I will come back and I'll show you how I finished off. So, and I did use crocheting around it, as I've said before in other videos. If you are new, I like to try and add the element of crochet and knitting to a lot of my projects. I find that's how I very much like to work. I like to have knitting be a part of it or crochet be a part of it. If I'm doing a big job in the back scenes, like I'm doing a big duster right now, a very light summery duster, it is a knit one, and I tend to do more crochet projects when I have a big knit project. If I were doing a big crochet project, I'd probably do more knit. I just had this one kicking around for quite a while. I wanted to get done. And this is actually the very first time I'd considered doing a coffee cup cozy knitted this way. Normally I just make them like my second video, I think it is ever, or it was my first video ever, I think. So now you see I turned, as I know that that is where my start is. I am, because I tightened it up, going to move my stitch marker to here. It will be a lot easier to see it. And then you know that's where you don't want to connect. So now you're just going to knit around. So I will come back when I have my 4 inches from beginning done, and I will show you what it looks like and how we're finished off. Okay, so I have my 4 inches and I've measured it on my cup. So now the next stage is to cast off. So now what we're going to do, turn on the light, is we're going to cast off with the crochet hook. I do appreciate doing this. This is my preferred method to cast off. So we're just going to in, around, pull through, and pull them both off. in, around, pull through and off, and pull them both off. You're going to do that for all the stitches on the needles, and I will come back when we're done with all the needles because it'll take me a minute and it's probably going to be a bit noisy while I try to get these stitches all cast off. So I will be back in a second and I will show you what I did after that. So I've got that row done now. So now what I'm going to do, and I can take that off, I don't need that in there anymore. So now what you're going to do is see if I can go straight across. I can, but I'm going to go, first I'm going to go around here and go 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm just going to go down the handle because this will allow this to not curl on you, and you do not want curling. This will just flatten it out, so we're just going to curl around. When I'm done this part, I'm going to grab the 2 stitches and then I'm going to do one final row around the top. So just going to go around making the coffee cup handle flatter. You're adding a bit more material in there, but what you're also doing is ensuring it won't curl on you, because if you see the 2 differences now between the 2 edges, this one's now curled. So we're just going to uncurl it, grabbing every other stitch. For knitting, that's how you want to do it, especially when you're grabbing stitches from knitting to crochet. You want to miss a stitch and then grab the second stitch. So at least I find, I'm not sure if anyone else feels that way, but when I'm doing it, I find that is the right spacing. And you won't get too many stitches on your rows. And you'll have a really nice flat look. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab that stitch. That's not how I want to do it. Okay. That way. And now I'm going to go up one, and I'm just going to go around this row one more time. So allowing you to have a secondary border at the top, which is exactly what I did with the last one. And this will give you a nice finishing border. It shouldn't curl, and being that it's a crocheted top, it'll be a little bit more of a tighter, elasticy fit. So hopefully you've made a nice tight fit. And if this is, sorry, fuzz in my nose. That's the one thing I deal with a lot, is a lot of fuzz flying around me all the time. But if it's a little looser than you want to tighten it up, now is a great chance to tighten it up. Either miss some stitches or at the end tighten up a little more. There are ways to do it. I've shown it in some of the other ones. I used to always chain 3 or 5, but then it will fall off on you if it's too much. So just making sure you have a nice tight, I guess collar on your cup would be the right statement, is what you're looking for, something tight. That's why I do like having the handles, because the handle kind of locks it in place. When you have a little bit of spillage, it will absorb into the yarn and then kind of stick it there as well. That's another way that it stays on. But if it's really loose, then it really doesn't stay on very well. You're just going to keep going around this top edge border. It's a stitch I wanted. And you're just going to keep going around and around. And then this should be the last row. So you just want to even it out. And I didn't say the color I had because this particular color I am personally using. It is called Nighttime. It is no longer available. This is the one I started with, and let me see if I have. It is actually not Bernat Yard Inspirations. It is actually a Loops and Thread, and its color is Orchid. I didn't want two of them the same color. That's why I made sure I did a different color. They are both almost identical yarns, so you can interuse them, use them together. Bundle Up has probably, I know it has a couple of different colors. I don't know if the Loops and Threads, I haven't been to Michael's in a while to see the Loops and Threads, if they have a lot of colors. I'm a purple girl, so I tend to grab my purples. So we are coming up to the other end now. Just single crochet right here. Get it all, but I got enough so I can pull it through. Single crochet right there, and then you're going to slip stitch right here. Pull it up, trim it off. There. Pull that. Now we're going to darn this in. I'm going to put it on the inside because this is what you would call the wrong side, or the inside. And I'm just going to darn my little tail in, making sure I weave throughout, and just try and really darn it in well. Now I'm going to trim it. We'll try it on the cup and I'll show you what it looks like from there. And I hope you have an absolute wonderful day. Okay, so that is a little bit looser than I want, so I am going to have to figure out how to tighten that up. But I don't think that's terribly bad. There's a lot more stitches than I need. So what I might do is I might just tighten it like that. And just grab this, and just, should have tied it first. We're just going to tighten it. As you see, I'm just putting a little tiny bit of string in there to tighten it on, which it'll now be on a little tighter and it won't slip off. It needs the little handle a little bit larger, but just means I had a lot of stitches on there. I could have done one less row apparently, but there you have it. So now I'm going to darn this in, and that'll be that. Oh. One stitch, second stitch, just pull it through, and there you have it. So as you can see, sometimes they don't go to plan, sometimes they're a little larger. You could pull yours back out. I'm not terribly worried about it. Obviously, I added a little bit too many rows in that, but, and when drinking, if you really want and are worried, just kind of tuck that down, and there you go. So there's your coffee cup cozy. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope to see you again, and I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Bye.